When I was in middle school, all I ever wanted was a sugar glider because I saw them at the flea market where I live in Bowling Green, Kentucky, which is an odd place you'd think to find sugar gliders, but they're actually pretty easy to get because when I was a freshman in high school, I got one. And when I first saw them, all I cared about was the fluffy tail and the cute little eyes, but I didn't really know how much time and energy it would take to care for it correctly. But after a while, I learned it was harder than it looked. I did some research, and they basically eat a human diet. You have to prepare fruit and vegetables and cook different meats, and they are supposed to eat better than I feed myself. So it was pretty much impossible to meet her nutritional needs, let alone her social and environmental needs. She was always in a cage, and sugar gliders are very social, very active creatures. So unfortunately, 6 months after I got her, she died of loneliness, literally. So people don't realize that owning exotic pets is detrimental to animals' lives, but that it can also be detrimental to the people around the animal as well. Exotic animals can spread disease, and they can cause sometimes fatal injuries to the people they're around. So, as I already touched on, animals detriment greatly from their interactions with us. Their social needs aren't met. Some animals, as I said, need to be with other animals of their kind, or they'll die of sheer lack of social interaction. Like that sugar glider has to be with others of its kind, and once I looked it up, I realized that, but I didn't know that before. And then their nutritional needs are often hard to meet. Aside from sugar gliders, if you wanted to own an exotic cat, for example, a mountain lion eats 8 to 10 pounds of meat in one day. Now, not only is that hard to find, but you have to be rich to pay for it. The environmental needs are a whole other category. Some animals need miles of space to run around and get the exercise they need, and some can just sit there all day, but if you don't research it, you won't know. Animals can also detriment in the way that they are hurt when they scare other people, or they become aggressive and the owners or others in contact with them have to protect themselves. So from 1990 to 2012, 55 exotic animals were injured and 200 animals died as a result of human-animal encounters as domestic pets. This is actually a higher amount of deaths than the people who were killed by exotic animals. So you could argue that exotic animal ownership was more detrimental to the animals than to the people, and more dangerous. Because of exotic ownership, animal species such as tigers are becoming harder to reintroduce back into the wild because they're becoming dependent on people. And they're already endangered, so they have less and less of that natural instinct to take care of themselves and hunt and be fearful of people or think of us as prey, because we're slowly becoming their caretakers. But this doesn't make them domesticated, and it doesn't make them safe. These are just some of the consequences of the legal exotic animal trade, and unfortunately the black market of animal trade is much worse than just these consequences, because the animals are in cramped spaces. They often go long periods of time without food or water, in dirty, cramped conditions, and some exotic animal traders report mortality rates of up to 90%. Not only can animals be injured or die because of exotic ownership, but they can spread disease to humans too through a process called zoonosis, which is the transference of disease from humans to animals or animals to humans. Although household animals pose threats, they can, such as toxoplasmosis in cats, which 30 to 40% of the population has had and haven't even known about it. And then there's cat scratch fever, which can be fatal. So some of these can be fatal, some can be non-fatal, but most of us have gotten something from our animals before, whether it be a cold or something as serious as salmonella. But the next worldwide epidemic is actually supposed to come from exotic or wild animals. You think about the past and where diseases have come from, and Ebola emerged from bats. The H1N1 flu emerged from birds. HIV started in primates, and now it's one of the leading health brigades in the world. And, the first big plague was the bubonic plague, and it came from fleas that was spread to rats, which was later spread to humans. Human injury is another big issue that a lot of people think of when owning exotic pets, and it's probably the biggest deterrent for owning an exotic animal. So, from the same website that gave us the animal injuries and animal deaths, from 1990 to 2012, there were 543 human injuries and 75 human deaths. Now, if we compare that to what we just said about the animals, there were 55 animal injuries and 200 animal deaths, which means a lot more humans are being injured, but a lot more animals are being killed. The reason that humans are injured so often by exotic animals is because it's impossible to predict their behavior, because their behavior changes with maturity. When they hit puberty, their hormones change, testosterone rises in the males, and they can become aggressive. And it can be unprecedented and without warning. Some extreme situations of that happened in Zanesville, Ohio, where in 2011, a man released 56 exotic animals, including giraffes, wolves, bears, lions, tigers, and monkeys, into the area before he committed suicide. Fortunately, no people were injured, but 49 of the 56 animals were shot and killed to protect the public, which is sad, because if the animals had been in their natural habitat, this wouldn't have happened in the first place. So in conclusion, stricter animal laws could be enforced to help with this problem. And then informing citizens, doing your own research, could let people know what they're getting into before they get into it. Like I did with my sugar glider. Like, she could still be alive if she was still back in Asia in her home, and I hadn't bought her because I didn't know how to take care of her.